Hi, welcome back to another installment of my AI shares experiment where I am using the power of artificial intelligence to try to beat the markets. Well, I'm not using it. It's investing.com has a huge database and it has an AI algorithm, and it's using that AI algorithm to predict shares that are going to beat the markets over the next month. So I've been doing this. Well, I've actually been doing it since August, but I've been doing it online. I've been making videos since September. And at that time, I started with a pot of $100,000, which I've been investing into the recommended shares since that time. And this was the situation as at the end of January. So that was basically 5 months into this experiment. And at the start of January, the 100,000 had grown to 110,809. I invested into all of these shares in January. And at the end of January, I sold out of them all. And it was 112,811. Well, I didn't actually sell out of them all, but I'll come on to talk about that in a moment. So the pot had got up to 112,811, which was basically growth of 12.8% in a 5 month period, which is pretty good, pretty impressive so far. Now, in terms of what's happened in February, because the point of this video is to update you on the outcome for February and the 6 months from September through to the end of February. So at the start of February, these were the shares that were recommended by the algorithm. Now, just to point out, I'm not doing any research on this. I'm literally just following the recommendations. So I'm using it as a tipping service. Basically, the AI is doing all the work, so I'm not doing any. So it's really just a pure experiment. And as I've said before, I'm not encouraging anybody to buy these shares. This isn't financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy these. I'm just showing you what's happened with my money. So at the start of February, I invested the 112,811. I just split it equally between all of these different shares. And here is the outcome for February of the share deals that I did. So the value as at the end of February of those shares that I invested into in February was $114,514. So that represented an increase in the month of 1.5%. Now, as I've said in previous videos, the one thing that I think is interesting to note here is the sheer wide scale of what's happened to all the shares. So you can see that actually only 4 of the shares were in profit and 6 of the shares were in loss. And the biggest loss was Roper Technologies, which lost over 10%. So that doesn't look too good, but it's the benefit of a portfolio, the portfolio effect, if you like. That's the whole point of having a portfolio. Some go up, some go down, but hopefully overall they go up. And that's exactly what's happened mainly because ultra cleans went up by almost 32% in the month. So there was a profit on that one share of $3,596, which offset all of the losses. And then we made a bit of profit on Applied Materials up 14%, Badger Meter and Skyworks. So total profits of 1,703 in the month. So that's pretty good. So year to date, the 6 months from September to the end of February, the portfolio is now up from 100,000 to 114,514, which represents an increase of 14.5% in the first 6 months. So obviously, if it carries on at that rate in the second month, then in the second 6 months, then I'd be looking at a target of 29% profit for the year. Now that would be an outstanding performance. You know, if you had a fund manager and you were investing with a fund manager and they said we can deliver 29% growth, wow, that would be incredible. You would be looking at doubling your money within within less than 3 years at that rate. So that's pretty impressive. So I'm very happy so far. As I said, it doesn't pick individual stocks well. So there's not one stock that you can put your money into because the algorithm was hoping that all of these stocks were going to go up. They haven't. 6 of them went down, 4 of them went up, but it had a big winner. So I've now got a pot of 114,514 to invest into the March shares, and they've just been released. I'm going to actually talk about them in a separate video, so that's the next video. So if you want to watch that, There's a link at the end of this video that will take you straight through to it. So have a look at that if you're interested in knowing what the shares are for March. But one thing that I wanted to talk to you about was, I've been doing this for 6 months, and I post these videos onto Patreon, and had a message from one of my patrons basically saying, I've been following what you've been doing, and I don't think the algorithm is getting the timing right, because whilst the shares are going up in the month, they're actually going up significantly after that. And he'd been monitoring what had happened, and some of the shares were up by more than 100%. I think some of them were up significantly more than 100%. So his advice to me was, you're cashing out too early. You've got the shares, why don't you hold on to them for a bit longer? So as an experiment in January, if we go back to that, what I started off with here, these shares that I bought in January, which in the month made a profit of 1.8%, which is not bad. If you multiply that by 12, then you're getting close, it's around 15% profit or so, more, more than that, in fact. 20% profit. So I was quite happy with the performance in January, but off the back of that advice, well, that sort of notification of you might want to think about holding on a bit longer, I thought, as an experiment, as another experiment within the experiment, I'll hold on to these shares for another month and see what happens. So at the end of January, those shares were valued at 112,811. I held on to them, and this is what they are worth now at the end of February. They are worth 121,695. So against the original purchase price of 110,809, they are now up by almost 11,000, representing almost a 10% increase in 2 months. So it was 1.8% in the first month, and then that increase has gone up to 9.8% in the second month. So I'm really pleased that I've done this, because obviously the gain is significantly more. I've made a lot more profit. And it also shows me that it might be worth holding on to these things for a bit longer. Now, obviously, I don't have an unlimited amount of money, so I can't just keep hold of all of the shares that I'm buying, because firstly, I'd run out of capital. And secondly, it's increasing my risk hugely, because if there's a massive stock market collapse, then I would have more exposure and I would take bigger losses. So what I've decided to do is hold on to these shares that are being recommended for a couple of months. So I'll carry on with the experiments as normal. So at the end of each month, I will work out how much profit was made in that month, and then we will cash that out and then invest into the new set of shares. So I'll just keep going on the same basis that I've been doing originally to see what the portfolio gets to over a 12-month period from the monthly recommendations. But as a secondary experiment, I personally am going to hold on to the shares for a couple of months to see what happens. Now, I've got these ones that are now 2 months in, from January through to the end of February. And what I'm going to do with these ones is trim them. So somebody sent me a message saying, you trim the weeds and water the flowers, which I thought was quite a nice analogy. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically, if the shares are more than 10% up, I'm going to hold on to them, because the new investment philosophy, in the past, you would say, okay, I've got a target of 5% profit. If it hits 5%, I am out. I've done my 5%. The problem with that is that if you get a really big winner and you cash out after 5% and it goes up 100% or 200%, you have lost most of that profit. So when people say, I wish I'd invested into Apple in the early days, or Nvidia in the early days, or Microsoft, or any of the big companies, Google, would they have held on for 10 years and then made 10,000% profit? Probably not. Most people would sell out once they got 20% profit. But the new philosophy says hold on to the winners, because they are going to the moon. So that's what I'm going to do. Anything that's in double-digit profit, I'm going to hold on to it. Anything that is less than double-digit profit after 2 months, I'm going to trim those ones. So on this portfolio here, obviously the ones that are in loss, I'm going to exit from those. And I'm also going to come out, I was going to come out of the bottom, I'm going to come out of the bottom two, which is Teradata and VF, which are only 6.6 and 5.4. Everything else is in double digits. So I'm going to hang on and see what happens, see if it keeps going up. So I wanted to just share that with you, just tell you about another experiment within the experiment, because I think I've been selling out too early, and missing out on some serious profits here. So I'm going to see if I can catch those profits by holding on for an extra month as another way of boosting the portfolio. I won't include these profits in the overall calculation. I'll just keep you posted on a secondary here as to what the profit is on this sort of longer term hold strategy. But hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. You've enjoyed seeing what's happened to the portfolio. It's now up pretty healthily in the first 6 months. It's doing really well. This experiment is going better than I expected it would. I was expecting there'd be some sort of collapse. We have had a lot of ups and downs in the markets, and I get a lot of messages from people saying, haha, shares have gone down, you're making lots of losses, but you just got to hang tight and just go with the experiment. So that's what I'm doing, hanging on to the end of each month, seeing what happens. It's likely that the markets are going to go down in the short term because of the issues in Iran at the moment. That's likely to cause the markets to start tumbling, but that's not my issue. I'm actually going to be buying in that tumbling market. So hopefully I can pick up some value when I'm buying the March shares, because I can't buy them today because it's Sunday and the market is not open. But hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, then please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'll see you again on the next video.